Welcome to the Talking Devils podcast. This is Manchester United's Greatest Games, a series dedicated to the greatest games in United history. I'm Wayne Barton, your host, and joined by long-standing United supporters and authors themselves, Roy Cavanagh, MBE, and David Blatt. Now, this mini-series looks at the greatest games in United history. In the last episode, we considered the outright greatest games. This week, we're looking at a famous thread of United's identity, which is the comebacks. One rule of the series is you can't pick a game that's already been picked. David, in the last round, chose the 1999 Champions League final, so that can't be picked this week, although it is probably the most famous comeback of them all. This category is rich. David, you are kicking us off this week with another of the most famous comebacks. It's September 2001. It's White Hart Lane. Set the scene for us and tell us why you've picked this game.
Right. Well, I'll start off by posing a question. What's the three most important words you could say to anybody on the planet? In fact, more someone means something to you, the more these three words have a special meaning. Any idea? A lot of people. Yeah, go on.
No, I'm not taking a guess.
Go on.
United win again?
No, not bad. What a lot of people say is, I love you. And that's a worthy second place. I understand why people say it. But the number one phrase has to be, I was there. Now that can apply to football, music in a concert, sex, you name it. You can see the DVD, watch it on TV, great. Nothing beats being there. And so as a United fan, being there is the most important thing of the lot. Now, as you know, United had the largest support in the country, the largest away support, so demand exceeds supply. Getting hold of tickets is a killer. In United vocabulary now, we say you've been chubbed after the guy responsible about 30 years ago. Despite all the IT systems and sophistication, getting a ticket for a game, especially a away game, which is what I prefer, the hardcore support. It's an away game. It's so hard. Now, for the last 20 years or so, due to various circumstances, I've lived and worked abroad. So what happens is the fixture list comes out. I dismiss it. I wait for Sky, BT, TNT to muck it about. And then when it settles down, I go, this one, that one, those two. And then about 6 weeks before a game, which is the cheapest time to try and get a flight, I get my way back. Now, being a Cockney Red, obviously I like to see him in London. And then I've got London mates who maybe don't want to go to the game or whatever. Because as you know, following United is more expensive than following any other team abroad. Other clubs call it a gold star game or a special game. I remember 10 years ago, Birmingham versus Wigan, the away ticket was £14. United came down £49. That's the problem being a United fan. Anyway, how many games to choose? There's so many we can choose, but comebacks. In the end, I chose White Hart Lane. Now, I got a mate who I was a committee member with the FSA, the Football Supporters Association, in the 80s and 90s, a guy called Rick. He's a Tottenham fan. And he said, right, for this game, I'll go with a mate behind the goal. You can have my ticket in the equivalent of the shelf. Okay, so I went. And I'm sitting there. Now, being a Cockney Red, I can get away with it. So the game starts. And let's be honest, we were awful. The first half, Spurs just sliced through us, a knife through butter. Our defence from walkabout. And when Spurs got their first goal, if I just sat there like a lemon, everybody going about, someone would have spied me and going, he must be a United fan. So what did I do? I get up. I'm going, oh yeah, effing hell. Whoa. They think I'm celebrating. Oh no, I wasn't. I was obliterating our defence, but they're not to know. With all the noise, I just made noise and shouted. 3 times that happened, if you remember. We went in, Tottenham fans were fooling themselves. I was standing up, moving about. They thought I was enjoying myself. Inside, I was dying. But then the second half, 49 seconds into the second half, a cross comes over, Andy Cole, a low header, 3-1. What could I do? I stood up. Oh, bloody hell. Ah! They thought I was berating the Tottenham defence. Oh, no, I wasn't. I was going bananas, but I was getting away with it. I exaggerated my Cockney accent, and I did that 5 times during the game. It was brilliant. I was so animated, and I got out alive. There was a momentum. Once we got the first goal, you just see Tottenham wilt. As Roy Keane often said, it's only Tottenham, lads. And you could see them wilting. We got more. The moves got more precise. And it was just fantastic to be there. And I remember when I come out, this has happened a few times in away grounds, it happened at Leeds. They say you can hide your scarf, but you can't hide your Cheshire grin, can you? Because I had to go and meet my Tottenham mate after the ground by the Park Lane end to give back his ticket. My yellow teeth were showing. I tell you, I couldn't stop. So that was a brilliant time, that game. And we had so many, because in the Fergie era, and in the 99, the FA Cup third round against Liverpool, how many times we never gave up. And that is special about being a United fan. It's not over until the fat referee sings, does it? So that's my recollection of that game. Hello? You all in shock? Talk to me. Are you reliving it?
No, it's incredible. Bit of a connection idea. Sorry about that. That's my fault. Manchester United, known for their epic comebacks over the years. Roy, your choice of a comeback isn't a comeback within a game, but rather an incredible two-legged affair. Ron Atkinson's Manchester United team lose 2-0 at the Nou Camp in the 18. It's like it's Maradona's Barcelona, so surely it's game over, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean that's what I think everyone thought at the time, except the 58,000 of us inside the game. The night, the atmosphere, the game has to be in the top 5 of my 70 years watching United. I mean, I'm old enough to remember, although as David has just quite rightly said, you do need to be there. But I wasn't at the Anderlecht or the Bilbao game purely because I lived in Salford, close to Old Trafford, and then 2 games were played at Main Road, so I didn't get to them. But other ones, I remember us beating Tottenham, who were the cup winners, European Cup winners. The year before, we beat them 4-1 after being 2-0 down. Porto in 77, when we won 5-2, although we didn't overdress the 4-0 hammering in Porto, but it was a great night. And I think the Blackburn game gets sadly forgotten by a lot of people when we won the league after 26 years. I mean, that was an incredible night, atmosphere-wise. But this Tottenham game, obviously, they had, as you say, Wayne, they had Maradona and they had Bernd Schuster, the German international. The coach was the Argentinian manager who'd won the World Cup. And of course, he got a 2-0 lead from the first leg. Going back to that, as David writes in his book, I was also listening to that game at the Nou Camp on a crackly radio back in Manchester. But we seemed to play very well over there, and we were 1-0 down to a Graham Ogg own goal, but seemingly playing very well. And then the crackling on the radio seemed to get louder and louder with about 5 minutes to go, and it turned out Barcelona had scored a superb second goal to seemingly put the tie out of reach for us. But the second leg in Manchester, as I say, everything was absolutely buzzing. finger in the mouth on a personal note. I had an extra incentive because I'd got a full page article in the program that particular night. I used to write a series about games, old programs, but we'd never played Barcelona in any fixture. We obviously had in the first leg, but that was the first time. This is the first time United and Barcelona met. So I actually turned the tables and wrote about the first ever game we played against Real Madrid in Manchester in the programme. But there was a feeling in the crowd that we had a good side. And if we could just obviously keep them goalless, we had every chance with our attacking prowess. And of course, you talk about Maradona and Schuster, we had Brian Robson. And if ever proof was needed around the world of what a truly great footballer and leader he was, this game summed it up. In the first half, we scored a goal where we went 1-0 up, and the game settled down, and you seem to think, well, this is going to be very tense. And then second half, there was a 5 minute period, an incredible, perhaps 2 or 3 minute period, where we scored two goals. And Norman Whiteside was actually involved in a lot of them. Robson had scored the first goal from a Ray Wilkins corner, which had been headed on by Norman Whiteside. And then Robson was on the spot when their goalkeeper fumbled a ball. And within 2 minutes, Frank Stapleton was on hand to score before an ecstatic Stretford end to win the match 2-0 and to give us a 3-2 victory over the two legs and qualification for the semi-final. Sadly, by then against Juventus, the injury jinx on Robbo particularly surfaced, and his loss was probably our biggest loss as we lost the tie 3-2 on aggregate. But the night in March of 1984, when we beat Barcelona, and the sight of Robbo being carried off the field by hundreds of ecstatic fans will long live in my memory.
Fantastic recollection there from Roy. This was definitely one of the greatest nights in Old Trafford history. I think Martin Edwards says it's the greatest atmosphere of all time. The choices made by David and Roy certainly made my list in terms of what is the most Manchester United match ever in my book, Football Taught by Matt Busby. If I'm looking at a game which created a narrative thread, and my choice would have to be 2-1 Sheffield Wednesday, April 1993. United hadn't won the league in quarter of a century. They'd come close the previous year, but the failure had only strengthened that we were a cup team. We'd won a couple of cups under Ron Atkinson, of course, and then a couple under Ferguson, but we were all desperate for that league title. 1-0 towards the end, it'd been 25 years of waiting, and it looked like Sheffield Wednesday were going to inflict this defeat on us. I think they went off the back of a semi-final, grueling semi-final themselves, where they played Sheffield United in the FA Cup, or it was just after that. It was one of the two anyway. But they were having a great season themselves, and they looked like they were going to win at Old Trafford. They'd won this penalty. There was all this kerfuffle about the referee getting injured, and he wasn't even the original referee because the original referee had been injured as well. And so towards the end of that game, you're just watching it thinking, this is United, they're going to lose momentum just like they had done the previous season. But momentum is one of the biggest things in football, and people look at that game. They look at Steve Bruce scoring to equalise, and then they look at him scoring to win the game. Palace to cross the ball. These things don't really happen in football. One centre-back crossing for another one to score. But they look at that and they said, no, that was a turning point. The previous week, though, we'd actually been to Norwich and we'd won 3-1, playing incredible football. This was a great Norwich side, one of the best ever. And they were top of the league early in the season. But we'd gone there to Carrow Road. We'd scored 3 goals in the first quarter of the game. really, really fantastic football. This was a very different test of character. This was Ferguson's side put under the microscope, really, like saying, all right, this is a bit of adversity. How are you going to react to it? And this is where they showcased the resilience for the first side, for the first time, really. And following season, we drew 1-1 with Blackburn. We scored a last-minute equaliser around Christmas time when Peter Schmeichel came up for the corner. We had a moment in the FA Cup semi-final where we were 1-0 down to Oldham, and Mark Hughes scored in the last minute. And I really don't think that we'd do any of that without Steve Bruce's double against Sheffield Wednesday. I think you can even go bigger and say we had this thing of never being beaten after that, where it goes out, over a full season or half a season, like it was with Newcastle capitulating in 95-96, or in single games or over ties like Juventus in 99, where we were 1-0 down in the first leg and we equalised in the last minute, 2-0 in the second leg, a comeback to win 3-2. Or indeed, as we said at the top of the podcast, in David's example, winning at Whitehall Lane when you're 3-0 down. There was that thing at half-time where Fergie had looked at the players, the Spurs players, and sort of said, all right, next goal wins it. And United scored the next one. It's still 3-1 to Spurs, but United came back and won 5-3. And I think that a lot of that is, obviously, the examples that have been used in Roy's case was before Fergie's time in charge, and none of the goals scored in David's time, but the Steve Bruce goals did create Fergie time as like a thread of personality in Manchester United's identity. And that's, for me, why it is one of the most important goals and games in Manchester United history. So what would you choose? What comeback do you think is the most United comeback ever? Get commenting in the comment section. Let us know your thoughts on social media. We'll be back next week to consider another thread of Manchester United's identity in this Greatest Games series.